Welcome back to A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University. Today we're talking with Lynn Matthews. Lynn, how are you?
I'm doing great.
You're looking great.
Thank you, and thanks for the invite as well.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I understand you're a school teacher.
I am, yes.
You like that?
I love it. I actually am a media director. I've taught in the classroom in the past. I'm currently a high school librarian, and it's the greatest job ever. I enjoy every single day.
Why?
Why? Well, you know, in the library environment especially, I have nothing but positive interactions with students, which is something that I was missing in the general ed classroom. It became so negative where I was constantly getting on students and they weren't meeting their potential, and it became me nagging at them all the time. In the library environment, they come to me for help and they're appreciative. Everything that I do every single day is positive. We're able to interact one-on-one in a lot of cases, which means I can really meet their needs. And I just truly enjoy the interaction with the age group that I have as well at the high school level.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came from, who you are.
Well, I actually was born in Las Vegas. My parents met and started a family there. But I did actually move to St. George when I was fairly young. Pretty much consider myself raised here. I did go to school here and enjoyed Washington County School District. I did leave, however, as soon as I could. I left.
You got away, huh?
I did. I fled pretty quickly. I ended up getting married, and my husband and I decided to move to Phoenix for him to finish his education. We loved Phoenix. I absolutely 100% enjoyed my experience there. We did, however, at some point get divorced, and that's when I chose to move back up to be closer to my mom. And that was.
Your mother lives here?
My mother does live here, yes. She's just recently retired from the school district this year, actually. So she's also a Washington County school person. And I came back and have stayed here. I've met someone since and got remarried, and I just absolutely have come to love St. George more than I did in my original experience, at least.
A rebirth, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I enjoy that it's a much larger, you know, obviously I was here in the 80s and it was a much smaller town at that time. And so I went to Phoenix and I started to love the city. And coming back here, it was a lot better to have a larger city. I like the growth. I know a lot of people around here complain about the growth, but it's something that I kind of like. I like the bigger city environment.
So you're a big town girl.
A little bit, yeah.
Little big town girl.
Yeah, I would categorize myself as a city girl for sure.
Where did you go to school?
Well, I graduated from Snow Canyon the very first year that it opened. I went to Pineview prior to that, but I did graduate the very first graduating class of 95 from Snow Canyon.
And then your college?
Oh, and then college. I did actually attend Dixie State for a period of time. And then I went on to get my bachelor's degree at SUU. I attended Weber State and stuff in the meantime, but I did end up graduating from SUU. When I went to Phoenix, I did also go to Arizona State University, and I got my master's degree there at Arizona State. And I'm a Sun Devil, true blue Sun Devil. I totally adore that university.
Well, I'm just a devil, so I guess that works.
Yeah.
Tell me about your husband.
My husband, he works for TSA. He is a supervisor at the airport here in St. George. He is by far my intellectual superior.
That's nice of you to say that.
He is. He's a very intellectual person, and I thoroughly enjoy that about him. He has the greatest sense of humor of anyone I've also known. He makes me laugh every single day, and he's an amazing person.
What's his name?
Chad Strong.
Chad?
Yep.
Is he a local boy here?
You know, actually, he grew up in Holden, Utah, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. It's about 400 people, I'm pretty sure. and everyone knows each other, and he is more of a country boy. And that's kind of why we ended up staying here in St. George. I initially did want to flee back to Phoenix area, but this is our compromise city where he can get his country kind of small town atmosphere. Having grown up in such a small city, that's kind of what he's comfortable with. And it's not so urban, but it's urban enough for me, so it's a good compromise place for us to be.
Big city girl and a country boy.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Somebody ought to write a song about that. You've recently been elected the Washington County Democratic Chairman, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, politics is just something that I've always had an extreme interest in. When I was a classroom teacher, I taught AP Government and U.S. History. I was that nerdy kid that sat and read textbooks all the time. I read political news for fun. Like, that's what entertains me and what kind of gets me going.
Did you say that? Did I understand what you said? You read political news for fun?
I do, yeah.
Well, good for you.
Sometimes it's more comical than others, but I do enjoy it, and I do love the feeling of being involved. And here in St. George, the Democratic Party is fairly small.
What's the percentage of it, compared to the Republican?
I do not know the exact percentage, but my experience is that pretty much everyone in the city is Republican, and they just assume that as soon as you meet them. So I've kind of made it my mission to make sure that anyone who interacts with me and assumes that I'm a Republican, to make sure they know that I'm not. So that there's a little bit of diversity here, because I honestly do believe, and it's kind of what the driving force is for me to be in this position is that you can't have one voice and grow as a people at all. I have on the bottom of my email signature a quote from Albert Einstein that says, "When we all think alike, we don't think very much." And I truly believe that. In this instance, obviously I'm the underdog, and so I feel like my voice needs to be heard in this instance. But if I were the majority, I would feel the same way. Like, I feel like I would want to hear what the other side has to say, because you really need the insight of your opposition in order to be able to justify and reason and rationale why you're doing what you're doing,
Well, anybody that doesn't listen to all sides before making a decision is short-sighted.
Exactly. And I kind of feel like Utah politics has kind of gone that direction, where it's so dominated by the Republican Party, and I feel like there needs to be a stronger Democratic voice so that decisions can be made educated instead of just because that's what we do.
So what are your plans to accomplish that? There's an election coming up. It's supposed to be nonpartisan.
Yes. Which one are you referring to?
The city election.
The city council? Okay, yes. And I have yet to really sit and talk to candidates about that, so I don't have too much information about the upcoming election. But I do think that the current political climate that we're in is going to lead to a lot of growth on both sides of the aisle. Because I don't know that our Republican friends in our community are actually happy with the way their party is going at this time either. So I felt like it was a really good time for me to kind of get in, and even though my personal views are a little bit progressive, I see the value of a centrist government, and I think that that's where you become successful. And so I feel like where we have both parties becoming so polarized to each side, that I see our Republican friends in Utah kind of pushing back against that a little bit. They recently just elected a new state party chair that admittedly said, I'm a centrist, and I see that as a good thing for us, because if we as Democrats can also be more centrist, then we can actually make some progress. So Donald Trump being president, even though initially was uber devastating to me.
Uber, what does that mean? Really, really
insanely devastating. Like, I had physical reactions to his election. And it wasn't because he was a Republican. It had nothing to do with that. It was really just because of what he stood for, his rhetoric, and the fact that he used that to kind of take his base and use the hate speech and use the negativity to rise to power. I just cannot get on board with that, and I feel like a lot of people are resisting against that right now. So even though it was a really horrible thing in my life, it actually has turned out to be a little bit more positive than what I initially expected it to be. That doesn't mean that I don't wake up every single morning shaking my head and wishing that things were a little bit different. But I do think that it's going to make both parties kind of wake up to and grow from the experience.
So you don't have any candidates in mind for the city council, I guess, or do you? Are there people, Democrats, looking to file for it? Or?
You know, I actually don't know of any at this time that are looking to file for the city council race. I am.
The mayor's also up, I think.
Is it? I just barely got into this position, and I also have been a little bit out of the loop because of the end of the school year. I was a little stressed out there. We are going to be starting to meet and gather and start doing that stuff mid-June. So hopefully at that point I'll have a little bit more information.
Tell me a little bit about the other officers.
Our administrative officers, we have Lynn Cobb is the vice chair. She's amazing. She was kind of one of the catalysts to me agreeing to come on board. She is just a very warm, amazing person, and I really welcomed the opportunity to work with her. She's super intelligent and bright. We have Chuck Good as secretary, who most Democrats are familiar with Chuck Good. He has run a number of times, and I know he does intend on running again in the near future for midterms. And then we also have Glenn Justice as our treasurer, he's a CPA and is also a newbie who will be joining us. So the two of us are brand new, whereas Lynn Cobb and Chuck Good have both served in the past, and I'm relying on them to kind of get me in the know with how things work in the city.
I'm a little bit familiar with the Republican precinct stuff. Do the Democrats have the same thing, precincts and delegates and so forth?
They do, yes. That is how we function, pretty much identically, yeah. I think we need a little bit of work on that because we don't use our precinct officers as well as the Republican Party does. But that's something that Lynn Cobb and I are discussing at this time about how to use that organization to strengthen the Democratic Party.
What does Lynn Cobb do? What is?
That is her main responsibility, is our precincts and all of our...
I mean, as a profession or?
Oh, she is a retired... I want to say, I don't want to actually misspeak. I'm not certain. She's in the medical field, but she did recently
Medical
retire.
person.
Yes.
Solves all of her medical problems.
There you go.
She's not a doctor, I guess.
No, I want to say it's actually more psychology oriented, but she is retired. I am actually the only one currently working a full-time job and raising a child and being married and being involved.
Tell me about your child.
I have a 12-year-old daughter for my first marriage.
What's her name?
Her name is Kaya.
Kaya.
She's going into the 7th grade this year. She's my heart, my everything. She's my little mini me. She looks almost exactly like me everywhere we go. People comment about how we both look alike. She is half African American. Her father is black, and so she has a much deeper complexion to her. But otherwise, she's pretty much my little twin.
And what is her name?
Kaya.
Kaya?
Yes.
We have a granddaughter named Naya.
Oh.
And we call her Mini Jody, her mother. So.
Seems to be pretty popular and common around here.
It is, yeah. What do you think of Donald Trump?
Well, there's a personal level to him and there's a political level to him, both of which are a little bit of a joke in my opinion. I have virtually zero respect for the man in both aspects. It was hard to be a parent throughout this political season and see the things that he said and did and be able to explain to my child why he was able to say the things he was able to say and still be elected as our president.
What do you think the reason for that was? Dumb luck?
I can't figure it out. I like to think that society is smarter than that. I like to think that people are better than that. And that was part of the reason why I was so devastated at the election of him, because I really lost a lot of faith in humanity, because I just could not see anyone supporting a man who would say the things that he said and did the things that he did, just on a human level, and inciting violence at his rallies and things like that. I really just have a very sick feeling when
Who were you supporting?
Well, I actually was supporting Hillary Clinton from the very beginning, actually. I adore Bernie Sanders. I felt like he was a great person to kind of invigorate the Democratic Party, and I think he did a great job of doing that. However, I actually got my start when I started getting interested in politics. Bill Clinton was in office. Hillary Clinton was one of my idols, and growing up in St. George, that was really strange because I was in a very...
Did you admit it to anybody?
You know, I was a little bit quiet about it at the time. I did not know anyone who was a Democrat growing up. I 100% was surrounded by Republicans. My family is all Republican. And so they'd sit at home and criticize her, and I would sit back going, but I see logic to that. Or, you know, and I kind of would defend her in my own heart, of course. It wasn't until I got out on my own and I could start speaking for myself that I felt that I could kind of stand up to my family and friends, which I do now, and they all are very aware of my
Do they accept you for that?
Oh, of course, yeah.
They love you in spite of your views.
Yes, yes. It leads to some great conversations sometimes, and I love that. I like hearing what the other side has to say. I don't think you could function in this area if you didn't, like if you were so resistant to it. It's something that you have to do in order to survive in St. George, at least.
Well, I have the opinion that it's unfortunate that we get nasty with other people, whether it's in church or politics or whatever. We need to be nice.
Yes.
There's a saying that I saw on the internet the other day: if you can't be nice, be quiet.
Right, right. And I kind of think that the internet kind of adds to that too. And it's something that I work on with my high school kids all the time. Like, if you're going to say ugly things online, there's not an online you and a real you. You're just as ugly as you are the worst thing that you say. So you need to kind of be cautious about what you're saying to people online, because you get a little emboldened and brazen when they're not standing right there in front of you. And I've noticed that a lot myself with interactions. People have criticized or come back at me with some negative commentary online, but yet when they stand in front of me one-on-one, they're not like that. We have an adult conversation that leads to, you know, actual thoughts and things being shared, and we don't get to name calling and ugly things. And that's what Donald Trump is to me.
Does he have any redeeming values?
You know, I wish I could answer that with a yes, but he has so many negative values that I can't see them. Like, because he name calls and acts like a child, and that's all I can see. I wish that he'd prove me differently. I wish he would prove me differently, but I can't see any of his redeeming qualities beyond his negativity.
Even a lot of the Republicans don't like him, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And I that's why I'm here. Is just we need to take the opportunity to learn from his presidency and kind of bring our both parties to the center and be able to cooperate with one another as opposed to just becoming more polarized and arguing and bickering more. We're not going to accomplish anything that way.
Who would you like to see run next time? Or is it too soon?
Yeah, it is a little early. I love Joe Biden. I really do wish he would have ran this past time. I named my car Joe Biden, so.
You named your car Joe Biden?
My car's name is Joe Biden. So I love him. I love his sense of humor. I think he is, I just think he is a great person. And so I kind of, at this point, I'm rooting for him. I don't know if it'll happen, but that's my pick at this point. There's a lot of other Democrats that I think could come out and be really strong, good candidates. Obviously, I'd love to see a woman rise up and try to run again.
Do you have anybody in mind?
Well, you know, there's your obvious Elizabeth Warren and a few other people who are strong enough, I think, to do it. I'm not sure if she'd be my perfect candidate at this point, but I definitely think that with the right running mate, it could work.
Who's going to be running on the Democratic tickets in Utah? Congressional and so forth.
Again, I'm kind of out of the loop of that right now. I'm still so new that I don't know. I know Misty Snow is running again. No, she's running for state office. She's not running for a national office. I have to honestly say I don't know who's running it for.
Well, it's refreshing to see a newcomer who says, I don't know. Search has ended, an honest woman.
If I don't know, I'm going to tell you. I 100% just, I don't know all the answers. I am kind of new to this. I need to educate myself a little bit more, but looking forward to it.
Your parents, you haven't said anything about them. Tell me a little bit about them, what they did and who they are.
Well, my mom, obviously, I just said she retired. She taught English for the Washington County School District at the middle school level for a gazillion years.
And she's a Republican?
Yes, yeah.
I won't tell anybody.
I think it's pretty obvious when you meet her. It's not something she hides. And my father actually passed away when I was really young. I believe I was 6 when he passed away in 1983. So he had diabetes and died of a brain aneurysm when I was pretty young. My mother never remarried, and I was raised by a single mother that was a teacher. So we had our struggles, but
single mother who's a teacher.
Yep.
That's a Democrat.
Yeah, very much so. And I've tried to tell her that a number of times. Does it resonate? No. But I'll get to her eventually.
How many other children did they have?
I have one brother.
Is he living here?
He does live here, yes.
What does he do?
He's a banker of some kind.
A banker?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Josh.
Josh?
Jardine.
Jardine?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of him. I know some bankers. My father was a banker.
Yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, what else do you want to tell us about the Democratic Party and your dreams and visions and desires?
Well, I think we're going to work a lot on our communication. Part of the reason why I felt like I needed to get involved with the party was because when I came here, I reached out to the party, said I was here, registered as a Democrat, but never really got anything back. Like I felt like
they were ignoring you?
I don't want to say they were purposely ignoring me. I realized that they were not, but I just didn't feel like I had a place here at all because it was it's so isolating to be a Democrat here in the first place, and then to not have a party that kind of welcomed me in any way was a little bit off-putting. I hope that we can kind of work on that a little bit. We want to communicate and make sure that everybody feels welcome and knows that this is the party for them. So that's kind of one of our biggest goals is to kind of get more communication out there. They haven't been using social media really all that much. Obviously, I see that there's great advantages with using social media, so we need to get on board with using Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all of those to communicate with our participants out there. So we'll have a lot of work ahead of us, but every little tiny step is improvement here in St. George. Every baby step counts.
Well, I try to attend a lot of meetings, divergent meetings, different opinion meetings. I attended some that were Mormon Democrats. Mm-hmm. There's some of those around. Yeah,
and that's actually something that we need to work on, because as I see it, a lot of the LDS values correlate very strongly with the Democratic values. I have a lot of LDS friends that have said to me a number of times that they feel like the Democratic Party is actually where they should be voting, except for that there's the abortion issue that they fight against. No party is perfect, obviously. You have to make that battle and that choice for yourself, but a lot of people have expressed to me as of late that they feel like the Republican Party isn't their party any longer, and that they feel like the Democrats actually represent their values a lot better. And I see it that way as well. I feel like, no matter what religion you are, a party that is going to be inclusive of all people, support all people is the party that I want to be a part of.
Well, there have been some prominent LDS leaders that were Democrats. David O. McKay was a Democrat. His son was a congressman, Democratic mm-hmm. congressman, so forth. So they're on both sides of the line. Well, yeah. Lynn, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
Went by really fast.
Thank you for the invite.
I wish you luck in your endeavors as chairman of the Democratic Party here in Washington County.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us on A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University.